I'm in a bit of a predicament, and to be honest, I'm unsure how to proceed. Let me start from the beginning. 5 years ago, my neighbor, Charlie, often referred to as Charles, shared the heartbreaking news of his 14-year-old son's disappearance. He reported it to the police, and it was all over the news. My wife and I felt terrible and offered to assist in any way we could. As time went by with no updates about their son, we assumed they had come to terms with the likelihood that the worst had happened. My wife and I never had the courage to ask if a body had ever been found. Occasionally, Charles and his wife, Kathy, would invite us over for barbecues during the warmer months. It was clear that neither of them had been the same since their son went missing. Kathy grew quieter and more reserved, while Charles appeared more awkward and nervous, reactions that were understandable to some extent. Fast forward a couple of years to just last week, Charles approached me while I was taking out the garbage and asked to borrow a shovel. Without hesitation, I went to grab my best shovel, not bothering to inquire why he needed it. He thanked me, claiming he needed it for some work in his backyard and promised to return it by the next day. He then headed off into his yard. Later, while standing by one of my upstairs windows that overlooked Charles's backyard, I noticed he was digging a large hole. He seemed to struggle a bit. After all, he is 56 years old. Concerned, I decided to fetch my second shovel and offer him help. As I entered his backyard and called out to him, he abruptly looked up, dropped my shovel, and hurried over, insisting that he could manage on his own. He then pointed to the gate as if I were a dog, telling me to leave. His bizarre reaction left me taken aback, so I walked away without saying another word. Curiosity got the better of me, so I went back to the window to keep an eye on him. He continued digging for at least another half hour. Eventually, he looked around, checking for any onlookers, and that's when he spotted me. I could only casually retreat from view. Something was off, and I was determined to find out what it was. I kept peeking into his backyard, but he had stopped digging. It seemed he was waiting for nightfall. Sure enough, at 1:30 a.m., I heard the sound of a shovel hitting the dirt. It was too dark to see anything from my window, so I quietly sneaked outside to look over the fence. I could clearly see him digging away. When he finally went inside, I took the opportunity to sneak into his yard and investigate the hole. In the moonlight, I noticed a small piece of a black garbage bag sticking out from the dirt at the bottom of the hole. I glanced back at his house, then at the hole, contemplating whether or not to find out what was inside. Ultimately, I decided it was best to retreat to my own backyard just in time, as he returned moments later. However, instead of continuing to dig, he vanished to the other side of his house and didn't reappear. I went back inside, trying not to wake my wife, and got back into bed. The next morning, the first thing I did was look out my window. To my dismay, the hole in Charles's backyard was completely filled in. I also noticed that his SUV was parked in the street rather than in his driveway. I have no idea what transpired during the rest of the night, but I can't shake the unsettling thought that whatever he had at the bottom of that hole could have been his son's body. For all I know, he might have dug it up to relocate whatever he had previously buried there. I realize this may sound insane, but I haven't told a soul, not even my wife. Frankly, I'm at a loss about what to do. Charles hasn't returned my shovel, and I'm not about to ask for it back. In fact, he has been avoiding me since that day. Something even more disturbing occurred yesterday. By chance, I looked out my window across to Charles's house and saw him standing at one of his windows, staring back at me. As soon as he noticed me, he quickly shut his blinds. This happened in broad daylight, and now I feel genuinely frightened.